as she's setting up, our next presenter is Caroline Hummels, and she'll be presenting 7 principles to design for embodied sense-making. And she's presenting with a very unique and custom-built new system, so we'll give her, please be patient as she tries to get it up. So let's welcome Caroline.
What do I do for this screen? Perfect. Good morning, everyone. I hope that you're not that stressed as I am. Yesterday evening, I thought, like, what is nicer? Take a bit of risk and do a live demo on the stage and tell you all about the things that we designed and the principles behind, or go for the easy and the comfortable way and do a presentation. Normally, I like to take risks, so yesterday also I like to take risks. So I thought I'd do the live demo, and then everything worked out fine yesterday evening, this morning. And then when I came in here, I got a JavaScript error and the thing went down. So I have to improvise a bit, unfortunately. But luckily, as a designer, you always try to kind of catch out and figure out ways to do so. So I put now things from the database in the website, so at least I can go to kind of slides on the website. So I was lucky that I was the third speaker because I could prepare it then. What I'm going to talk about is basically the principles of embodied sense-making that we used for designing this studio that I brought up here. And I'll tell you both a bit about the studio and the project that I'm doing on that. But I thought, like, over the years within TEI, we do a lot of things, we design a lot of things. But it's also nice to understand why we're doing things and the rationale behind so that we can learn from that. So I wrote the paper together with Jelle van Dijk. But actually, it should also say ambra trotto. It's not that we wrote the paper together, but a lot of things that are in the studio that I will show you, we've developed together. So you could see it as a combination of work done in Eindhoven, at the Eindhoven University of Technology, work done in Utrecht, and work done in Umeå. So I'll move on to the next one. So I don't know how it is with you, but what I very much like about TEI, or TEI, is that we all have a different background. But it also means that you have sometimes difficulty understanding each other. We have difficulty in language, we have difficulty in backgrounds, and the disciplines bring in different vocabulary. And even if we do use the same words, they often do not mean the same. And of course, it's nice that everyone is different. That's the attraction to this whole audience, at least for me. But then you kind of have to figure out, like, if you have all these differences, is it feasible to actually communicate together? And I know that I was with Brick. I saw him already this morning. Hey, Brick, morning. I don't know if you still remember, but we were at one of the TEIs in Canada, and we're having this discussion, and we're walking around with all these demos, and you were seeing completely different things than I was seeing. And I said, like, I'm actually a bit dissatisfied, because I would like to know the rationale behind. So there's also one of the triggers that caught me in my upcoming sabbatical, which I just started a few days ago, is to go around the world, meet 50 of the people that inspire me, who have a different background, and talk to them and try to figure out, like, can we actually kind of build bridges? Can we find ways to communicate better with each other? Can we do that in action and figure out, like, what are people actually meaning with the things that they do? And of course, this is the beautiful starter of my sabbatical within TEI, that we have all these meetings and we have all these people. So in that sense, that's kind of the start. And the project is called Engaging Encounters, Sketching the Future Together, because I'm not only intrigued and interested in how we collaborate and how we bridge, but also how we as a community also think about the future. We're developing things as designers, as engineers, as computer scientists, as psychologists and social scientists, as artists, etc. Oh, sorry. So this is basically the topic of my sabbatical. But while doing that, I also thought I really want to incorporate my own theoretical framework and the things that we do and explain others basically what we're doing and why we're doing it. And within Eindhoven and within our group, Designing Quality and Interaction, we very much focus on theory, on embodied perception theory. And we take that as a starter point. So phenomenology, embodied cognition, the ecological theory of perception, I can name a few more. And we take that as a starting point. But if I want to take that as a starting point also for these encounters, I thought I need to figure out how I want to meet my 50 inspirers and have with them that talk to bridge. It needs to basically be starting from the same ideas. So what I aimed at is saying, like, okay, I want to make a studio that focuses on embodied sense-making. And embodied sense-making, basically what you see up here, is having a loop. Basically, there are two loops of acting, sensing, and social coordination. So it's me doing things in the environment, you doing things in the environment, and we kind of having this social coordination up there. I must say we have a perfect social coordination up now, because I'm talking, I'm walking, you're all sitting, you're all listening. You could say it's perfect because we have this setting. But I say yesterday, I did a lot of encounters and we did a one-on-one. You get a completely different dynamics in there. And I even had a talk with Luna to say, like, shouldn't we have these sessions in a completely different way so it's far more interactive? We still have to figure out that one, how it would work in the future. So embodied sense-making is actually based on work from Dijk and Di Paolo, and it's based also on work on Lucy Suchman. But it's basically very much looking at the interaction that we have within a social setting and how we create meaning together using our body and using the context, using the environment. So it's very much a shared process and a shared understanding in situation, trying to create this meaning together. So it's not shifting meaning back and forth. It's actually something happening in the middle of us all, basically, now. So, but how do you design for embodied sense-making? How do you actually, if you start from the body and if you start creating meaning together, can you also design things for that in order to enhance that? And that was basically my task for my sabbatical. Can I design something that pushes that? So that's why I developed the mobile design and sense-making studio, which you see up here. Or at least that's part of it, because I also have cameras attached and lights attached, but I thought, like, that's too much for now. And this was a photo from yesterday, and I must say, I don't know if the student volunteers that are on the photo are in here, but it was really fun. I was already doing a couple of encounters, and every time I was in this fishbowl or aquarium thingy in the D school, and everyone was walking by and think, like, what's happening, what's going on? And at some point they said, oh, can we come in and try? And I think that's the beauty, especially of embodied sense-making. It is there, it is in context, it is in a situation, and it was inviting them to be involved and to get their own senses in. So I got some boundaries to develop it. I really wanted to enhance this and stimulate this embodiment, this engagement, talking together, developing together, thinking about what the future can be, respecting each other's skills, basing on each other's skills. And one extremely pragmatic one, I have to carry it myself in the airplane. So when I was doing this design process, I was also thinking about how can I communicate it to others, what I was doing. It's not so much that you will redo or rebuild this thing. So I tried to kind of capture those decisions and the steps that I made into 7 principles of the design process, which I'm going to go briefly through. What am I doing with respect to time approximately? 10-ish? Great. So the first one is social situatedness. If you look at social situatedness, it's also based, ooh, that's small. Sorry, that was an issue, I think, when I tried to do it too quickly into the website. It's basically saying that cognition is an ongoing achievement of social coordination in a setting where you look at social interactions, you look at interrelationships, you look at roles, norms, culture, politics. So that means that when we're sitting together, we have certain roles. You and I have the role of the audience, being silent, apparently. I have the role of the speaker, but they also bring on a lot of culture and our own identity, etc. And that's something that you have in the situation, but how can you play with that? So for me, translating that principle into the design studio is very much, hey, Lorna, do you see yourself? Hey. The design principles were very much like, can I design something that is really triggered and targeted, that you can use it in situ? It's not like we're sitting together and talking. Can we actually see it more as a workshop? Are we able, and can the tool be able to seduce people to maybe even say more than they wanted to and invite them to think out loud and also think about this future? Can you also stimulate it, and can the design studio work as a physical stage? It's like how a spider uses its web. That is not so much that you're only interacting with the table, but the table is actually stimulating this conversation. It's like a background. And also, can it be designed in such a way that you keep focus and at the situation at hand? And that's, for instance, why it's a standing table. That's, for instance, why you can stand on two sides. You can kind of get more people involved. But it said a bit about the dimensions. It's a bit about the materials, etc., why it is what it is, based on this social situatedness. Second principle, scaffolding. Scaffolding is basically a term by Andy Clark, who was saying, like, and it was based again on Vygotsky. They said, like, if you have tools and ad hoc recruited props in the environment that help you to solve problems that you can better do than without having all these things, it's far more difficult sometimes to think in your head and get all these things and rationalize on things than instead of using the environment to actually to do and to think and to act. So that's why the studio uses a lot of scaffolds. And basically, it used tools, it used props, it used iPhones, so that you, and iPads and all kind of things, so that you can collect information. And in these kind of things, there are all kind of pockets, and in the pockets we have all kind of objects. So again, you can use these as scaffolds to enhance the situation and to kind of stimulate everything. So that's what you see up here. I developed together with Ambra Torto, with a lot of students of ours from Sweden and students from Eindhoven. These were mostly from Eindhoven. So like, can we design a tangible kit that really stimulates skill-based interaction? Next to it, we use the scaffold of a database. So there's a whole database underlying that really helps you to document, to use RFID tags. There is a small printer inside. Every time to make it physical, to keep kind of things in there that you can interact with. Third principle, traces. If you have scaffolds and you have all these objects lying around which you can play with, and by the way, they all have magnets, etc., so you can really play around, make scenarios. You can also see in the way that people interact with it, it's nice that you leave traces so that you have some kind of understanding what happened, but also that you can use them again afterwards as a new scaffold. So by leaving traces, you basically also stimulate the process of scaffolding. And that's exactly what we've done and what I've done in this studio, all kind of traces. So one of the traces is basically the tools that you have up there. And here you see the hands of Bill. I don't know if you recognize your own hands, Bill. But it's like going through the motions, going through these actions, you actually get some understanding of how things are going. But we also document the entire process, all the audio, etc. And you can bookmark it. So even if you kind of, there's a small RFID scanner in there, you can at some point say, like, this is interesting, or this I want to write down as a keyword. So you can scan it and you have it in your audio file bookmarked. So the whole tool tries to say, like, okay, we use scaffolds We use these principles of traces, but there is something else, and we noticed it again yesterday. Can you also have the openness and the open-endedness to stimulate people to really start exploring what this future can be? And that's the principle of interactive imagery. And interactive imagery was kind of coined by Goldsmith already in the 1991. It's basically saying if you make sketches, you can see a lot more in these sketches than that's actually in there. So the ambiguity of this sketch allows you to kind of, it amplifies imagery. And also Leonardo da Vinci pointed out that confused things rouse the mind. So that's what we try to do with also all these objects. I mean, you could say it's a simple brush up there. Yes, I know what I can do with a brush. I can clean, I can do my dishes. But if you have this whole set of things that you can connect together, is it still a brush, or is it getting an animal, or is it, what is it actually? So we also try to make the tools in such a way that it really stimulates imagination. Fifth principle, the dialogical system. And for that, we were really inspired also in the way that we communicate and by the work of Stephenson and by the work of Richard Sennett. What Stephenson is actually saying that the systems of co-present human beings engage in interactivity that bring forth situated behavioral coordination. And the participants in a dialogical system, what he kind of explains, really benefit when you have a face-to-face communication, that you can coordinate things with each other, that you can co-adapt towards each other, and that you co-regulate a coordination of co-adaptation. You have to read this one in the paper. There's a lot of co in there. But the whole thing is like a dialogue is not pushing back and forth all kind of opinion. It's creating things together in dialogue. It needs ambiguity. It needs openness, as Sennett is also saying. And that's the thing what you kind of have to stimulate, that there is this dialogue in there. It's not that the one is better than the other, but that you together explore. So that's also what we try to do in there. That's why I'm actually, with my suitcases, going around the world and have these encounters at the place of the person. I don't do it via Skype, but I actually travel around. And as Sennett was saying, you need basically a setup in there that you stimulate curiosity, that you tempt people to go beyond their boundaries. Last thing very important in there is that it breathes respect. And that's also, and I noticed it yesterday, that's also why the table, although it was CNC milled, there were a lot of hours of sanding and making and all kind of things in there. And that's what you see again in the way that you interact with it. It's made of wood. It has a certain kind of quality. And again, in the way that you have these dialogues in there, really helps if you see that that kind of subtlety is in there. Almost there. Sixth principle, first-person perspective. For those who have read Merleau-Ponty, you very much see that that's where we're starting from. We see the world through ourselves, which doesn't mean that it's only about ourselves, because the social coordination process is in there. But it's very much that you have to figure out how can you actually stimulate that the people who are around this table also can really be themselves and be intimate and have a focus on this social system. And I hope that you don't mind, Bill, using you as an example, because we had this encounter yesterday, and what I found really, truly nice and amazing is that through the skills of Bill, which is also very much music-related, he was actually exploring, like, okay, what does it do music-wise? What does it do sound-wise? Whereas I kind of noticed while him doing that I'm actually more in an interaction type. So I really try to see, like, where can I connect to people? Whereas he had a completely different way of perceiving it. And that's kind of nice if you can keep that in designs, that you really focus, like, where are people's skills and starting from their skills in this co-design process. So what we also notice in a lot of experiments is, like, if you use embodiment and if you use the body, then actually people have an interesting way and also are stimulated to use that first-person perspective. And then the last principle that I have, which relates to it, is about catalyzing engagement. if you have this talk, how can you kind of stimulate that people that do not know each other also immediately kind of get this social coordination process going? And that's already, for instance, some work that I'm doing with Ambra already for many years, is if you use skills and if you use embodiment, we have seen in many experiments now that also the engagement grows, the quality of the designs have I wouldn't say it grows, but at least it expands a lot. So it positively really influences the outcome of your design process. So what we're trying to do and build is engagement catalyzers. Can you do stuff, can you interact, etc., so that people feel comfortable and are able to use? And that's, for instance, in this set, where we also have all kind of magnets in there and all kind of things, but even things that you can put on your fingers, so that you can become really close to people and really get into contact. And what we noticed, like talking, scribbling, writing, sketching together, brainstorming together, stickies, does something completely different than touching each other. But touching each other with some safety of objects in between, but still feeling each other. Yep, last slide. That's basically it. A wrap up. I also have a demo exhibition, which I think is tomorrow, if I'm right, that all the demos are tomorrow. Feel free, if you're intrigued, to come over. I will still have some encounters with some of the audiences, and I would really love to hear more about your ideas about the future of TEI. So thank you for your attention.
We have time for a quick question. If there's a, oh, here we have Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne Rogers, University College London. I was struck by your comment just at the end where you compared the sort of more traditional ways in which we think about design through stickies and drawing and so on with this idea of having magnets and other things that you've got in your box of delights that enables us to touch each other. And I kept thinking throughout your talk, why and for what purpose? So you explained all your design principles, but you know, we understand what the purpose is of stickies and so on, is to encourage people to sketch out their designs and to talk about them. And here you're saying, well, we want people to touch each other, and so they can be more engaged with the magnets and communicate with each other.
Engagement as such. So maybe to say we've done experiments where we actually we have a neighborhood in Eindhoven called Vaarbroek, which is socially not that strong and not that well. They want a new community center in there, but they are really figuring out how can the citizens in the neighbor, the people in the neighborhood really participate. And we've done different setups. We let them basically co-design together through stickies, etc., so they can express themselves in all the way, in the normal way that we do design. Very nice ideas, works well. We also did it in a setting where we say, like, we make it a bit more embodied. So we don't do stickies as such, but we stimulate them by touching each other, by doing things together, by giving them tinkering material, by making it, still having the similar conversations. What happened in the end of those experiments is that the group that did the stickies and did the normal kind of, you say, that the things they were regular with, but far less a group, they didn't they didn't defend each other's ideas. They were still the person from this was still the civil servant, the person from the housing company, the citizens. Whereas in the other group, where we had a lot more embodiment in there, they acted as a group. It didn't matter if they were the civil servant or the people from the housing company. They saw that they created something together. They felt more attached to it. So it's not just for the matter of engagement that we do this. We actually do it that we think, like, if you engage people more through their body, in the end also the designs, the communication, the outcome, the processes, etc., can improve in a different way. I'm not saying it's better, but in a different way than in the other way. And I think we can explore far more than we have done right now in that area. So that's hopefully a bit more explanation.
Wonderful. Okay, excellent. Let's thank Caroline.